How's everyone doing tonight? Welcome. It's great to be here once again. It's always a pleasure to come and speak to you guys. So thank you so much for taking time from your busy week to spend a few minutes with me and give me the opportunity to learn as we talk here. It's interesting how the opening message always has something to do with what we're going to talk about, right? And no, we're not going to talk about what happens with husbands and wives. But to allow others to finish what they're saying or to explain themselves or to be able to transmit their thoughts also has to do with respect and kindness, right? So when you're kind towards somebody else, when you respect them, you allow them to finish what they have to say. So as Adriana said, you don't jump into conclusions, and that kind of has has something to do with what we're going to be speaking here tonight. So when the blind eye sees, I was asked earlier, is the title correct? Because it says when the blind eye sees, but there's the picture of an eye in there. Well, I did that on purpose, right? So when the blind eye, meaning self, see, right? Or when we open our eyes and we decide to see what else is out there. So what do I seek? When we came in today, I asked some of you to answer a little piece of paper that was exactly that question. What do I seek? What do I want? Right? I also asked some of my friends the same question. And I asked my husband too. And it was funny because when I asked him, I said, hey, can you please answer this question? First thing he did is, this is entrapment. I refuse to answer these questions. I know I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I said, no. Exactly. I said, no, just the first thing that comes to your mind, right? And he did. But it's funny because most of the answers that I got, they were very similar in nature. I want to be happy. I want peace. I want to live a full life. I want health. So everybody answered in those same lines of I want health, I want happiness, and I want peace, right? And I want to have a good life. And everybody comes here for a reason, right? We do what we do for one reason or another, even if we're not conscious of what that is. There is a purpose behind the way that we lead our lives or that the way that we conduct ourselves. And we sometimes get bombarded with our own thoughts, asking what it is that we want to accomplish, right? So are we looking for personal growth, right? Do we want to connect with God? We want an easier life. We want love. So see, even before you wrote your answers, I had the answers because everybody else who answered that question answered something similar, right? And this is what we do all the time, right? We are constantly thinking about what it is that we want, what it is that we can do in order to accomplish something. So, in a way or another, we are always focusing on who? On ourselves first. That is the first thing that comes to our mind. It doesn't matter who you ask that question, the answer will always, maybe 99% of the time, be I want. It is never I want for them to be happy. I want for them to be healthy. I want for them to have peace. We most of the time don't look beyond our personal bubble. And the first thing that comes to our mind is about ourselves. It doesn't matter how good of a person we are or not. Our first instinct is to always put ourselves before anybody else. And there is nothing wrong with that. It is okay to want good for ourselves. It is okay to want to be healthy or happy or live a full life or have love around us, right? But is it okay to only seek for personal growth, to only look inside for the answers that we want, to put the focus on the self all the time, right? So, what is the most effective method for guaranteeing self improvement and resisting the attraction of wrongdoing? A philosopher of antiquity once said, know thyself. And if you were to turn around and say, how do I know myself? Most people will tell you what? Look inside. Go inside yourself for the answers that you're looking for. Go inside yourself for the answers that we seek. So, everywhere, all around us, people are always telling us, go inside yourself. But very rarely you hear, look outside yourself, look out into the world, right? So, we have been conditioned to that constant focus on us first before anything else. It's always the look inside. Now, is there anything wrong with that? No, right? But is it the only thing that we should be doing? Just looking inside ourselves, right? This constant focus on if I have a problem, I'm going to meditate. If I have a stressful day, I'm going to retreat. I want to connect to my interior self. I want to connect with the God inside of me. So every time that we're seeking something to fulfill us, our first instinct and what people usually tell us to do is to what? To go inside, right? So we have this veneration for the self, even if what we are trying to do is to go inside and connect to God and contemplate God, right? So, do those who have devoted themselves to a life of contemplation, doing no evil, and thinking only of God, get any special merit? No, because if they do no wrongdoing, then they do not do good either. Not doing good in itself is wrong. It is not all right to think of God only. God has given human beings duties to carry out on earth. Those who spend their entire lives in meditation and contemplation do nothing praiseworthy in God's eyes, because such a life is completely private and useless to humankind. God will force them to account for the good they have failed to do. So we find this in the Spirit's book on questions 657. So here we have everybody's telling us to always go inside, to always focus on ourselves. And we are on this constant attempt to connect to God only that we sometimes forget to see beyond our eyes, right? We forget to listen to what is out there. We don't see many times what the world is about, the world outside us. And sometimes that can blind us to others, right? To the ones, to others who need. It can blind us to the injustices in the world. So, although it is part of what we should be doing, trying to connect with God, it is not okay to live a life where you can look around and say, I've done nothing wrong. I've caused no hurt. I've done no evil. That is just not enough, right? Because when you don't do any good, that in itself is wrong. Because we have a duty not only to ourselves, but to others around us, right? So it's almost like this culture of always going in, always thinking about ourselves, always looking for the answer inside, it kind of blindfolds us to everything. It's almost like we are all walking around without really seeing what's happening out in the world, right? And we think that we are doing the right thing. And a lot of the times it is needed, but it's not the only thing that we should be doing. So you might look around and say, I'm such a good person. I'm enlightened, right? I look around and I see beauty everywhere. Oh, I am so stressed today. I need to go do some yoga, or what else, what do I have to do? We're tuning out sometimes, or excuses that we lead such busy lives. So between family, myself, work, and what I have to do to zen out, I don't have much time for anything else. And those things become the only things that we see, right? Maybe sometimes you feel like you're such a good person that you are filled with inner peace. And all of those feelings and all of those things are okay, but they are not the only things that are happening around us. That is not the only place where our focus should be. So it's almost like we look for the light so much that sometimes we are blinded by that light that we're looking for, that we are incapable of seeing what else is needed from us, right? So we have this naive understanding or belief that the world is a beautiful place. And it's not a lie, it is true, right? We live on a beautiful planet. But what? But we can't be blind to the ugly in the world, right? Not everything is beautiful. So we have not only to look inside ourselves, but be able to sometimes shift our attention from us to the other so we can see beyond our sight. And we can really see, the ones that don't have anything to eat, the ones that don't have anything to drink, the ones that go cold, the ones that don't have a place to lay their sick bodies, the people that are looking at us, craving a little bit of attention. They're not even asking for love. They just want to be acknowledged. They just want maybe a smile, something that can make them feel a little bit more human. But we are so busy with our lives and with ourselves that sometimes we forget, and, and they become the unseen, right? We walk around and sometimes we don't even acknowledge that they're there. And what that causes sometimes, even though it's not our intention and we are focusing on the good, that constant focusing on the self can lead to what? It can lead to selfishness. And that is dangerous, right? Why is selfishness so dangerous? Selfishness, as we have repeatedly told you, is the root of all other vices. Every wrongdoing can be traced back to selfishness. Study all the vices, and you will see that selfishness is at the root of them all. You will never succeed in eradicating them until you attack iniquity at its root. Only then you have destroyed the selfishness that is their cause. All your efforts should be focused on this end, as selfishness is the plague of human society. All those who attempt to reach moral excellence must uproot every selfish feeling from their hearts, because it is incompatible with justice, love, and charity. It offsets every good quality. Spirit's book, question 913. So that is why this constant focus on us, on our insides, is dangerous, because we have to be able to shift that to the outside as well, right? So we can see everything else in the world that is not beautiful, that is not right, that is not just, right? We have to be able to see where love is needed, And we have to be able to see where charity is needed. Now, what is charity, right? Is charity when I walk down the street and I give a beggar a dollar or two? Is charity when I'm doing my spring cleaning and I'm throwing things away that I don't want anymore and I take that to Goodwill or I give it to other people that maybe can distribute that to those who need? Is that charity? Yes, of course. That is charity. But that is not the only type of charity, right? Charity is when you allow somebody to finish what they're trying to say. Charity is when somebody's sick and you go visit them. Somebody's in the prison. Somebody needs a hug. Charity is maybe somebody who just needs you to sit next to them and not say a word. So those are all examples of charity. So charity is not only sharing your material excess, but above all, charity should be focused on love and care and respect, right? And what is one way to make sure that we are ridding ourselves of selfishness, even though it might be a blind type of selfishness where you don't even realize that you're focusing so much on yourself in detriment of others, right? It's simple. All we have to do is read the gospel, right? Love your neighbor as you love yourself, right? Wish unto others that which you would wish upon yourself. Do unto others as you want done to yourself. So if you were to follow those simple maxims, right, the earth would soon be a happy place. And it's very simple. It's not much, but it's still very hard. It is hard for us to do because we're not conditioned to think of the other. We are mostly conditioned to think about ourselves first. And a lot of people tell us that that's how we should lead our lives. Put yourself first before everybody else. And that's what we do. And we think that that is okay. And that is not always okay. And that is not how it should always be. So all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. So this is the first article of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, right? From the United Nations uh, was ratified after the Second World War, and it's beautiful, right? All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. It's wonderful to read, but is it true though? Not really, and not yet, right? We're not all born free and equal. We do not all have the same rights. But one thing is certain, we should act towards one another in the spirit of brotherhood. And this is something that we should strive for. It's not something that happens yet, but it's something that one day will be the norm for us, right? And everywhere we look, we have reminders of how much we should be doing for one another. And if we find something like this written in the laws of man, do you think that we can find anything like this in the natural law or divine law is another way of addressing it? So the laws of God. Do you think that we can find something similar in the laws of God? Well, not only we can find something similar in the laws of God, it was first in the law of God, right? And then in the law of man. Yes, and everywhere we look, we see that. Now, you can go to a library and get books and books filled with the law of man. What about the law of God? Where is it written? It is written inside of us, right? So here you go. Here's a perfect example where we should be tuning in, but we can't keep our gaze only here. It has to come out, right? So in Spiritism, we learn about the laws of God, the divine laws. right? So there's the law of adoration, right? Where you love God with all your heart above all things. The law of labor we have where we have to work so the world can move on, so we can progress. Imagine if everybody were to just sit around and not do anything. Our life would be purposeless, right? Reproduction. So there is a constant recycling and opportunities for us to come back over and over again. Self preservation. And this is where we put a lot of our focus, right? Where we bring the I before everybody else. It's that instinct of self preservation that we have. The law of destruction. Now, destruction is a law. Why? Any ideas? Recycling, because in order for something to be renewed, it has to be destroyed first, right? Social law. We are not meant to be by ourselves. We're meant to be part of a society, and that's another reason why it's so important for us to love one another. Law of progress. There is no way of not of unlearning something, right? We always go forward. We might stay put and stagnant for a while, but it is the law that we will advance. Equality, where we should all be equal, right? Freedom, where you're free to make your choices. You have your free will, and nobody can take that away from us. And the law of justice, love, and charity, where the world should be just for everyone, should be fair. There should be plenty of love for everybody. Nobody should be thirsty for love. And charity, not only the material charity, but especially the charity that is founded and solidified in love. So all of these laws are very important. Now, is there one that is the most important one? So I'm going to give you a hint. Jesus was asked once, what is the most important commandment? The most important law, the most important teaching? He said, love your God above all things and with all your heart. And then he followed up. And you have to follow that with love your neighbor as you love yourself. So again, I'm going to ask you, which one is the most important? You're like, that's complicated because you just said that Jesus said you have to love God above all things with all of your heart, and that is the most important commandment. But there's also, you have to love your neighbor, but they are two different things. So I'll tell you now that out of all the laws in here, the most important one would be the law of justice, love, and charity. But now, how could that be? How can this be the most important one if the law of adoration, according to Jesus, is the most important commandment? You guys just told me this a couple minutes ago. Where is the divine law found? Where are they found? Inside of us, right? So where is God? God is everywhere, right? So God is inside of me. God is inside of you. God is throughout nature. So when I'm loving Adriana, when I am loving my neighbor, I'm loving God Himself. Therefore, I am practicing the law of adoration. So it all boils down to justice for everyone, love, and charity. So all virtues are admirable, as they all are signs of moral progress. Every act of voluntary resistance to the seductive influence of temptations for wrongdoing is a sign of virtue. But the sublimity of virtue entails the sacrifice of self interest for the good of others without having any ulterior motives. So, the most admirable of all virtues is that which is based on charity and is the most fair minded. the Spirit's book, question 893. So here it is again. What is the most important law? The law of charity, right? Justice, love, and charity. And it says in here, without having any ulterior motives. Now, what does that mean? That means that you do good for no reason at all. You do good for the desire to help others. You do good for the love that you have for your neighbors, right? For your friends, for your brothers, for your sisters, for the stranger out in the street. It is that saying where you don't let your left hand see what your right hand is doing, right? You don't do good or you don't help others so you can glorify yourself, so you can be recognized, so you can be praised. Because that is not as valuable as when you do love, when you do charity, what? Because it is the right thing to do, because it is what you think you should be doing, right? Now, a lot of people have this desire to do good and to change, right? And they think that charity is wonderful. But now, do they really understand, or do we really understand the true meaning of charity? What is charity, right? So, what is the true meaning of the word charity as used by Jesus? Benevolence for everyone, indulgence towards the imperfections of others, and forgiveness of offenses. So, what is benevolence for everyone? What is the meaning of the word benevolence? That is, it's kindness, right? It's respect. It's being kind to one another. It's accepting one another. Indulgence towards the imperfections of others. Now, what is this? Indulgence is when you accept people with the mistakes that they have, with the flaws that they have, right? You don't hold those things against them. You don't try to use their imperfections or their flaws as a way to grandify yourself and humiliate them, right? Is the person that goes out in the slums to do charity work, but they're not dressed in amazing clothing, looking absolutely different from the people that they're helping, which would what make that person ashamed of who they are, right? So it's the opposite. It doesn't matter how materially superior you are, you dress yourself down. So you make yourself more equal to them. So you make them think and see that it's not really you who's helping them, but it's the other way around, right? It's they who are helping you to be a better person, to better yourself. And that's why in Spiritism we say that charity to others is what? It's charity to ourselves, right? Because by helping those in need, we are truly and fully in what? Helping ourselves, right? So rather than looking inside and trying to connect with God, we connect directly and perfectly with God when we are out in the world helping those who need the most. Right? So that is the meaning of indulgence. And forgiveness of offenses. What is that? When somebody screams at you, forgive them. You don't turn around and you scream louder, right? When somebody does something that hurt you or wrongs you in a certain way, rather than trying to do the same back, what do? You understand that just like us, that person is also on this constant walk to better themselves. So, the same way that sometimes we expect our mistakes to be forgiven, we have to be able and willing to forgive those, right, who do things that we don't appreciate or that offend us in some way. So it's a two-way street. So charity is this. Charity is being kind. Charity is accepting people for who they are and forgiving the mistakes that they make. Now, a lot of people have the desire to be charitable. Some people do some charity, but very few people have really live charity in the sense that it is meant to be lived. One of my favorite examples is Agnes Gonya Boyashu. So she was born in Macedonia in Skopje in 1910. And out of the imperfect humans, I think that she is one of the most beautiful examples, obviously and undoubtedly the most perfect example of somebody who has been on this planet, and that is the embodiment of charity and love for the other is Jesus, right? But we are so far from him. So somebody that is closer to us in the way that I see and understand things, I think she is a perfect example. So at the age of 12, she felt this calling. She felt like she was meant to live a life where she was helping others. And that's how she started to live. At the age of 12, she felt that need to be of service. At the age of 18, she moved to Ireland, and she joined the Sisters of Loreto. At the age of 19, she left Ireland and she went to India, where she worked for many, many decades, where she actually came to pass. She joined a group of nuns and she started doing a lot of work. She worked as a teacher for many, many, many years. She later became known as Sister Teresa, and then later on, she became worldly known as Mother Teresa, right? And while she was teaching, she took a she took a year off, and she was going from Calcutta to Darjeeling. And as the train was going by the slums, she once again felt that voice inside of her telling her that although she had dedicated her life to being of service, she was to dedicate her life to serving the poorest of the poor. To me, it's an amazing story because that is almost like it is literally having a calling inside of calling. It's God calling on you to eyes to do the service, and you've been willing to do so. So she left the convent and she went to live in the slums. She went hungry. She had no place to live. She had no place to sleep. She had to do exactly what she was there to take care of. She wanted to take care of those who were hungry and who were cold, and she had to resort to begging herself. And she says that many times she thought about giving up. It's like, man, I could be in the convent right now, right? It's not an amazing place, but I have food and it's warm and and there's comfort and I'm not sleeping in the streets. But every time that those thoughts came to her, she thought about the purpose behind what she was doing, and she never gave up, and she kept on pushing and pushing and pushing. And she went from one to a group to many. So that little girl, all the way in Macedonia, that heard that voice and that desire inside of her to do something good for somebody else, was the one who rippled throughout the world, who saved more people than we can count. Right? She did so much good, and that came from one person. Sometimes we're like, "Oh, I'm so tired. I really don't want to do this." Maybe that action that we decided not to take is the action that would inspire millions of people later. to do something good for somebody else, right? And there was no person that was sick enough, dead enough for her to help. She would walk through the through the streets and pick up the ones who were barely alive. And she many times she would be asked, "But mother, why are you trying to save this person when this person is already dying? There's nothing we can do. We could be saving that person. We can put our efforts in saving somebody that can be saved." She goes, "No, everybody is deserving of love. All of these people here have lived their entire lives unseen, unwanted, and undesirable and loveless. So if we can love them in the very last second of their lives, they will die with dignity, even though they were abandoned their entire lives. And wherever there was suffering, she would be there, right? When the epidemic of AIDS was ravaging through the US in the early 90s, she left India and she came here. And she was picking up bodies throughout the streets that not even doctors wanted to touch, right? And what she was asked, "How can you do all of this, right? How are you capable of doing all of this?" And her answer was so simple. She's like, "I don't do any of this. This is not my work. This is the work of Jesus, and this is the work of God. I'm just a pencil in the hands of God, and I go wherever He takes me." How humble is that, right? You are doing so much for the world. And when somebody tries to give you a compliment for that, you are so humble that you say, "I am nothing but a stick," right? So I go wherever I am taken. So this is not my work. So it is uh, a beautiful example of life. And she says that it is not how much we give, right? But how much love we put into giving. So it doesn't matter if we're given $1 or a million. To give a million when that means nothing to you is the same of not doing anything. But to give $1 when that dollar could be your bread in the morning, that is everything, right? That is self sacrifice in the name of others. And we should be taking examples like this because every single one of us here, the simple fact that we are here put us ahead of billions, not millions, but billions of people in the world. And we should be thankful for what we have, right? And we should be striving. So rather than wishing that we were always lucky or that we had amazing health and a wonderful life and that we had love around us, we should sometimes understand that God calls on us to be the food of somebody. He calls on us to be the water of somebody. He calls on us to be the ones who are the friend, who bring the love, who care for the sick, right? Who visits the one in prison. I heard something the other day that this person walked into a nursing home and they were looking around and like, wow, there's so much around here, right? Technology, and it's a wonderful life. But you look around, there's so many sad people. Why is it? And one of the nurses said, because everybody here is looking towards the door, waiting for the kids to walk through the door and loving them. Because most of the people here were left in here and they never saw their kids again. So there is so much suffering everywhere, and we are wasting our times not loving those who are in need of love. And we don't have to look through the ones that have won Nobel Prizes, right? To find examples of people who dedicate themselves to doing good. There are people all over that we never heard of that do wonderful work, that serve just for the love of serving, that help just for the love of helping. There are people around here, Orlando or neighborhood, sometimes their neighbors do that, right? I consider myself very blessed because I I'm one of those people who always thought charity was beautiful, but never really did much. Always had a desire to do, never really acted until I actually started to frequent here. And my catalyst is Sergio. Thank you. So I was Sergio's student, and one day in class he goes, "Hey, listen, I have somebody who needs a few people to go to Haiti. They are gonna bring some bags, and they need people to help them bring some donations." And I was like, you know what? I think I'll do it. So I called this person that Sergio had mentioned in class, Roosevelt, which many of you here know, right? So for the past almost 3 years, I am inspired daily by this man that if you look at him, you have no idea of the work that he does. You have no idea how much of his life is put into helping others. And the reason why I don't give up and the reason why I don't stop doing the little that I do is not because I am an enlightened person that does it because I want to help. It's no, I'm still learning. I have much to learn. I do it because of because I have a daily example in my life of somebody that dedicates everything in the name of others. From morning to night, this man is out on the street helping as many as he can. And though that example could be one of us, we never know who we're going to inspire by the actions that we take, but what we do. But we're never gonna find out if all we do is focus on ourselves, right? Is always bringing the thought to inside of us, and that was why I chose the title for my talk, right? When the blind eye sees, not only the eye as the eye that can see, but especially me, especially us, right? The self. Because we are so conditioned to walk around blindfolded that we forget to see what really matters. And I want to share something with you. So, this is a video from the trip that Sergio was actually trying to get people to help and to bring the bags. And I made this video about 2 years ago, but this is the reality, right? And this is what it really does to people to be able to put yourself in the place of those who really need. When the group finally made it to Haiti, all they saw at first was sadness, poverty, pollution, trash, people, and animals all sharing the same streets. But when you saw the people looking back at you saw hope in their eyes and smiles on their faces. That is the moment you understand that when they look at you, they see someone who's telling them they matter, a friend to help pave the way for a better life. When you realize so little means so much to someone else, it humbles you. It gives you a lesson in what it means to be human. So, charity is not just those material things that we think we can give to people, right? It's something that comes from a place that is much deeper, is heavily rooted in love. So you can say that doing charity to others is being able to love them as truly and as deeply as you can love yourself. This is a prayer by Saint Francis, and it is really beautiful. And I think it shows what charity should be like and what we should strive for. Right. So, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow charity. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is error, truth. Where there is doubt, faith. And where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. and where there is sadness, joy. So grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled, but to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, and it is in forgiving that we are forgiven. And it is in dying to ourselves that we are born to eternal life. So let us be conditioned to think of others a little too. It is okay to put ourselves first, and it is okay to think about ourselves. But let us learn to think that the bounty that we ask for, the health that we ask for, the love that we want in our lives, we don't only wish for ourselves, but let's learn how to wish that for us, for our neighbors, for those who have the least, right? And right, so many people spend their lives looking for a bigger purpose, right? Something that really makes them feel alive. We forget though that we start, we need to act. And life then shows the ways to follow. All we really need is a heart open to the world and eyes capable of seeing beyond ourselves. Every spirit has a journey that involves pain, but this same pain awakens in us a force so powerful that it can change the universe. So we are all on this journey, right? And it will take a lot of justice, love, and charity to get to the end. Thank you so much for being here tonight. It's been an immense pleasure.